Very pleased to tell you that our guest this evening is David Gilmour, who has his own solo album out and has been a mainstay in the Pink Floyd for a long time. And welcome.
Believe it.
You guys, over the years, have been kind of hard to find out about. I don't know if that was intentional or, just you didn't do that many interviews because it didn't work out. Or
We used to do a lot a few years ago. We haven't done so many lately, but it's not a group policy. It's just didn't feel like it at the time, I was thinking. I didn't think it was necessary.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and I know a lot of people are interested in what you have to say. And if we could, maybe we'll do a little sort of history, get in some Floyd music, and then get to the new album. For you, Pink Floyd was something I know from what I've read that you knew everybody before you were in the band, that you've known them for a while, and then Sid left and you joined, or I've never been quite clear about that. Was Sid in the band when you joined? Or
Yeah. No, Sid, I knew Sid before. I knew the others not very well. And they asked me to join up at a point when Sid looked like he wasn't going to stay with it much longer. And I joined up in 2005, was in it for a short while. And then Sid split after about a month or so.
The Sid we're speaking of is Sid Barrett, for those who haven't read the history books. What was it like going in to record with Pink Floyd the first time through? Those are early days.
I don't know. The first several months of my being in it was very, very difficult. It was, I didn't know what to do. I was a bit out of my depth in terms of what they were trying to do. And I was just feeling my way around. I was basically just being a rhythm guitar player for a while, just to hold it all together.
Now, shortly after you joined, they released an album, Saucer Full of Secrets.
Yes, right. That was the first one I worked on.
The hard one to find on this side of the country. Was it ever officially released over here?
Oh, yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
Because it's real hard to come by now.
It was on Tower Records.
That explains it. The company now defunct. Looking back on that record, what do you think about it? What music comes to mind? What was it like recording that?
I really enjoyed it. There's the two tracks that I like the most are Saucer Secrets and Set the Controls to the Heart of the Sun.
Why do you pick those two out?
Because I think they're more definitive of what we were all about at that particular time that we were trying to get into.
Consciously at that point, I know See Emily Play was a hit. And were you at any point after that thinking of singles, or was that something you immediately tossed aside?
No, we did try to make the hit singles after that a couple of times. Then we put out 2 or 3 singles after that period. And we did work quite hard on a couple of them to try and turn them into and make them sound like hit singles. Because it seemed like a good idea at the time. But we weren't good at working that way. I mean, we weren't good at trying to manufacture hit single sounds. We were terrible at it. And consequently, they died a death.
All right, David Gilmour is our guest. If you just joined us, I'm Dennis Macker there, the WLIR FM, and sort of talking about the early days of Pink Floyd. I guess the next thing was the soundtrack for More that was released.
I guess it probably was. I'm not too sure. Confused on dates that long ago.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it. It's here. More was a strange film. I saw it a long time ago. I don't remember very much about it. How did you guys score for it? Did you get to see the movie, or did they come in and tell you, we want this kind of song?
We met the guy who did it, Barbe Schroeder, a very nice guy, still a friend. But I think we were more into getting that reputation of having, of being more diverse and multifaceted talents and that sort of stuff. And we wanted to get into that. And we wanted people to think we could make movie soundtracks. And the movie really didn't matter that much to us. In fact, none of us liked the movie very much. But we wanted to advertise ourselves as a movie soundtrack maker with that band, I think, to some extent.
Did it take long to do?
No, I think it's 5 days or 6 days. I know we had the whole film written, rehearsed, and recorded within 2 weeks.
Wow.
I mean, it was unbelievable. Working under pressure like that. But
what was the response to it at the time?
It was, I don't know, it didn't sell as many as, say, Thoughts on the Secrets at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people liked it.
I'm just wondering, because it was kind of...
We had a lot of sort of requests on stage to play the numbers from it.
Uh-huh. And the movie, of course, has disappeared wherever those movies go.
Yes.
I'm surprised, to be honest, that somebody hasn't brought it back and said featuring Pink Floyd, since they're so apt to do that. But this may move. That'll come at some point.
Who knows? It was a pretty dreadful film then. I'm sure it hasn't got any better with the years.
All right, let's get to Maguma, which was the next release shortly after. Were you simultaneously working on both records?
Well, the Nor one was, as I say, a very quick little thing in the middle. It was in a very short period of time. I really can't remember whether we were doing them at the same time or not. But Maguma came up and we wanted to do a live album. And we also wanted to work on things individually. So we did a live recording and then we went in and recorded all these other pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And one of us on our own in the studio, Dave on own, trying to get something together. I know people like it a lot, that album, but I don't find it very satisfying. Don't really see it as being terribly successful myself on my terms, but a lot of people did like it.
What about you going in the studio and doing your thing? Was that part of the studio learning experience? I can imagine it must, for all of you, worked out for one.
Yes, it's definitely a learning experience.
The next release.
Mm-hmm.
What's that been in mind?
Let me see now. I remember when we started to do it, we started writing, working in a rehearsal place in some docks near London. And it always sounded to us like a theme from a Western when we first started doing it. I can't remember what our original working title for it was, but we always used to have working titles for these things. We never used to think of the real album title till after the album was finished. But I can't remember the working title of that one. But that again is a learning experience in the recording of it and getting all the music written, which I don't think is 100% successful, but it was very good fun. And we did perform it live with orchestra and choir, several places. We did it in New York. And that was much more fun than actually making a record, I used to find.
You, I don't know if it was around this time, but I remember reading about you playing a date in England, I believe. You had an octopus out of a pond. Was that around this time?
That was Crystal Palace. And it's too long ago in my memory to remember exactly at what period it was.
I want to see pictures of it, though.
It must have been about in 69 or 70, I guess, yeah.
I guess this might be a good point to break for that. How hard was it to prepare the live shows that became so much a part of your reputation and image?
Well, they built up over the years, and it wasn't anywhere near as complicated as it is now in those days. But we used to spend a bit of time working on ideas for it. And we did do a lot of, we did do some shows that we haven't even got any record of. We didn't record the music from or anything. And we used to, in those days, do shows where we'd go on stage and say, right, we're not going to do anything we've ever played before tonight. And just say, what key are we going to be in? And just do it. Make it up as we go along. And it would depend very much on our mood.
You had a device. I'll mess up the name of it. I think it was called an azimuth.
An azimuth coordinating. Well, that was our name, which he stuck on it. It was basically just a quadraphonic pan pot. That they didn't exist in those days, and we had someone develop one and build one for us. And instead of these tiny miniaturized ones you get these days, which are about 2 inches across, it's a big box, nearly a foot cube box with a stick sticking out the top. But basically it was just a quadraphonic pan pot, and we had a small quadraphonic system we'd put around the halls back in 1969.
Kept the audience on their toes.
Yeah, so we would run the organ and some sound effects and things through it and run them around the hall. And you could just move the sound right around the hall. We still use them, but everyone has them these days. Well, not everyone has them these days, but you can get a commercial quadraphonic pan pots which work far better than those odd things we used to have. We just got one back, actually, of the original ones that were stolen years ago. We retrieved it from somewhere. I don't know, someone wrote in and said they got it. And it's being put in a museum in England. It's the very first of that type of thing.
I remember on one of your tours, we made headlines because a lot of equipment got stolen over here, right?
Yeah, that was in 1970, I think. We were in New Orleans, and we had a gig there. So we'd done the gig there, and we had all the equipment in a big Avis truck. And when we woke up the next morning and looked out at the balcony of the hotel, it wasn't there. We were just off to Texas to do some dates there. Disappeared, so we all went home to England.
God, it was devastating at the time.
Well, it was for a bit, but they got it back. And the FBI down there found it again for us with only 4 guitars missing, which was bad enough in those days.
Sure. All right. David Gilmour is with us if you're just joining us. I'm Dennis McNamara, WLIR FM. We sort of left off on Adam Hart Mother. And I guess I should ask you about Fat Old Son. That's your song on that album.
That was actually another attempt at doing something by myself, because I played everything on that. And drums and everything, dreadfully played. I mean, I could do it so much better than if I was going to. I don't know, it's just a little nostalgic soul.
And again, part of the evolution.
I guess so. Well.
Taking us to the next Pink Floyd album, Metal, which I noticed over here, or it seemed to get a lot more radio play, I think, than any in the past, and seemed to do commercially better.
Well, I mean, each one of these records was in fact doing a little bit more than the one before, and our tours over here were gradually building up, where we'd been playing in half-empty 2,000-seaters on the first tour, and we'd been building up so we could sell out a couple of nights in the Fillmore and stuff like that. And by the time it came to Metal, we were just about selling out 10,000 seaters around the country, smaller sports arenas and things like that. And our general popularity was on a gradual upward climb here. We were quite happy with it, the way things were going. And we brought out that album. I think it's one of our probably most successful albums in a lot of ways.
A lot of favorites on that, if we can talk about them. One of these days.
Yes, I mean, I love One of These Days. It's one of my all-time favorites of ours. So,
what do you remember about that recording there?
Recording it? The thing I remember most about recording it, actually, is that myself and Roger both played the main bass part on it. We double-tracked it live as we did it. We both played the same part. And we got 2 bass guitars. And one of them was the one that Roger generally used, which was okay. And there was another one that we just sort of laid around as a spare. And we didn't carry around spare strings in those days. We just didn't have them. So we sent our roadie off down to the West End of London from the studio we were in to buy a set of bass strings, post haste and as fast as he could get back. And we waited there 5 hours or something for this guy to go back with these bass drums so we could play that trap. And He eventually started phoning up his home, the places he hung up, and said, "Have you seen this guy?" And of course, they'd all seen him. And they said, "Yes, he was there just a little while ago." And then we had a huge argument. And he said, "Where have you been?" He said, "Well, there's an awful lot of traffic, you know." And he said, 5 hours to get to the West End, and back, it's only 2 miles. And then went through a whole boogaloo and arguing, saying he hadn't been anywhere else on the way. We said, "You've changed your trousers. You've been home." He said, "No, I haven't changed my trousers." And this went on and on arguing. And in the end, he said, "Well, even if I did go home, I didn't change my trousers." Wow, unbelievably. And we didn't even sack him, which is the funniest part.
So from that comes great music. I know.
Well, we've actually got, in fact, the track we didn't, I think we had to record the track, studio time being what it was and our state of finance being what it was. We in fact recorded it with the Duff bass drums on one of the basses. Well, it's in stereo, you know, there's one bass on one side and one bass on the other side, and one of them is not near as good a sound on it as the other one.
The next record, I pick it up reverently. I mean, it is a record that has,
Sorry, a bit of plastic.
withheld the test of time, certainly. As we speak, Dark Side of the Moon is still in the top 200 in the United States. It came out in 73.
Right. Well, isn't it?
It sure is. Quite a record. Tell me about it.
What could I say? I don't know. We started putting bits of music together in a rehearsal room somewhere, and Roger came in one day and said, "I have a theme for the whole thing. Let's turn it all into one big long piece." And we started working it from that point of view.
It took a long period of time, right?
What, to record?
Yeah.
Not particular. No, I don't think so. I can't really remember. I don't think it's that long. But we did one whole bunch of stuff, then we went off and did some touring, and then we came back and did another whole bunch of stuff to it anymore. We got a guy called Chris Tolls to come in and help us on the mixing.
It was Alan Parsons, right?
Yes.
Let's talk about, musically. Well, Money, of course, was a very popular number and a hit single.
Hit single, one and only in America.
And you had it edited, right, to be released as a single.
Yes.
Take out the note.
It's wonderful. It's one of the most wonderful things in being in this business is when our wonderful record companies send us their edited versions of our songs for us to listen to and say we'll okay them or not, which of course you never can. And we have to do it ourselves. But if some of the edited versions we've had of things have been unbelievable.
In retrospect, do you ever go back and listen to them?
No.
Is it just you move on or time to that?
I don't know. I haven't listened to that record. I shouldn't have listened to that record in 5 years. I very rarely listen to a record after it's released anyway, because you spend so much time with it when you're made for it. You've probably heard it more times than anyone who ever listens to them gets to. You know it in and out so right, but we've had just about enough of it by the time it's released.
How do you react to the response this record's had? I mean, it seeks surprise.
No, we knew when we'd finished it, and the cover was done, and everything was all final. We knew we had got a good record. We knew it was the best thing we'd done. We were all very convinced that it would do better than anything we'd done before.
Mm-hmm.
That I certainly wasn't prepared for how successful it was. I lost a bet with Steve, our manager, over there on how high in the flights it would get. To us, it wouldn't make the tuck turn. And he said it made.
Another I wanted to ask too is, over the years, cover art, which has now become an art form, essentially, just had a lot to do with your album covers. And I was wondering, how does that work? Hypnosis, of course, has been very involved. Do you go to them and say, look, we think you should do this? Or is it a mutual sort of agreement?
Most times they've come up with their concept of what we have on there. Dark Side of the Moon cover was pretty much going to them entirely. The Wish You Were Here cover too was pretty much done to them in time. The Animals cover is Roger's idea, and the concept took out. And the medal cover was the last minute thing which we had to organise by telephone from Japan. And it was not a successful cover as far as I'm concerned. But yes, it's generally down to them, very largely, unless they can't come up with something or unless we don't like what they do. Mm-hmm. But I've gone genuinely do love what they do. I like the things in behind the phantom.
How do they work? I mean, how is it? Do you sit down for a period of time with them, or do they come and say, do you like this or them?
Often wondered, well, they go off from the record with their music, and then they come to us with one or two ideas, with various ideas usually. Because Rihanna just goes on from there. It's all we've done most times is sort of say, no, we don't like that about a few pictures here and there.
Dave Gilmour, by the way, is our guest in WLIR FM, and I must believe that it had to be incredible pressure to come up with something to follow the success of Dark Side of the Moon. Or did you think about that?
It was a very difficult period. I mean, I think all of us would say that the period of making Wish You Were Here was the hardest period we've been through, probably, in terms of having to decide what we were in it for and stuff. And the actual process of recording it was very painful.
Just because of the length of time involved?
No, just because of how successful Dark Side of the Moon had been. We didn't really know for a while what we wanted to do, whether because our original goals in rock and roll had been achieved, whether we still were in it, or whether we still had valid reasons for being in the business we're in. And doing what we do. And some of us were very undecided during the entire making of that album. Consequently, there was a lot of tension between us because some of us felt that others weren't there at all, which is why it's called Wish You Were Here. Really.
This also marked a change of record companies in the United States.
This is true.
And so this was the first release on Columbia Records. Let's talk about some of the songs on this weekend. And, of course, the success of the record, I would imagine, shows that it's awful hard to follow Dark Side of the Moon.
But it also applies to all sorts of other situations, too. And the rest of the album actually applies to the whole music business as a thing in our lives in general. It's much broader than just putting that sea.
Welcome to the machine.
Thank you.
Well, what does that bring to mind? What do I need to ammo?
What does Welcome to the Machine bring to mind?
Was the machine the music industry?
Yes, well, the machine, I mean, in this particular case, yes, obviously a the music industry. It can mean any industry, really. I can't really talk about all those things too much. They're Roger's idea, and he writes the words. And not always 100% sure that I fully understand what he's saying and some of them saying. It's a bit presumptuous for me to pontificate about exactly what they all mean.
How do you feel about this story here left on to it?
I think it's very successful in its representation of us and the period we were going through. I think there are aspects of it that could be improved by better playing and more dedication to what we were doing. But in turn, that might detract from something that it has got.
Right.
In terms of being a reflection of our current state of mind.
Okay.
At that time.
And we move onward to Animals. Where did you find this factory? I mean, this is real, right? The picture on the cover with the tape over it.
It's Battersea Power Station. That's in London.
What did people say when you saw this animal floating above the factory? You must have gotten some great responses.
We had some wonderful responses. The first time we put it up there, the metal ring that was holding it broke, and it disappeared up into the air lanes above London and landed on a farm 30 or 40 miles away.
And the guy must be convinced it can some bell.
Oh, a pilot in a plane saw it, flew past it, and was pretty surprised, they say. And
Right. How that idea? Was that Rogers?
Yeah.
That was Rogers' idea? Amazing. What was Animals like recording? Because
it was great fun. We all enjoyed it. We recorded it in our own studio, which was nice, because we built a studio. The first time we'd recorded in the studio of our own, it is a very different sort of thing, because you haven't got the same pressures on you when you work from what you do. So it's a much more relaxed feeling actually doing it.